Hello, play the game, it's Xiant again, and welcome back to Battlefield 4 Beta, Shades of Shanghai Obliteration Mode. I picked out clips that I've cobbled together from a couple of matches that were just on their own sort of meh, because it illustrates what I want to talk about. I just got done watching the CSGO, one of the finals for one of the tournaments that's going on right now, and NIP, the #1 team in Counter-Strike Global Offensive right now, was just kicked out of the running. And it was an amazing game, but there was something that was said by the commentators that really gets my mind going, as these things usually do. And it's that Counter-Strike is such a potent team sport, but you still must count on the individual skill of the players on the teams. You have to count on them not only to follow their orders, but to, when it comes time, to make their shots. To, if they have to, make the correct decision in a split second, knowing as they do that some of the team rides on their shoulders. And so when we look at Battlefield 4, and something that DICE has said quite clearly is they want to make Battlefield 4 a sport. And by that they mean they want to make it an e-sport, because, well, Battlefield 4 will not be a sport until Counter-Strike is a sport, as far as I'm concerned. But DICE's hope is a valid one, and DICE's mission is an important one. And something I think they need to take from Counter-Strike is that individual skill should not be completely ruled out of the equation. It should not be just about team play. And I know they've said that, oh, you can be a lone wolf and be successful. Well, in my experience, at least in the beta, it's really rather hard to be a lone wolf and truly help your team. You have to be team-minded most of the time. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. However, I think that this obliteration game, which I've only played a little bit of, one player can go in and get shit done. One player can arm the bomb and take a circuitous route, but he must still rely on his team. There are several points in these games where the bomb is planted not based on individual skill, but because a chopper picked up the teammate and flew him away from where all the other enemies were not, so he could arm the bomb. But at that point, it's up to the player and those around him to make individual decisions and make the individual plays that will make the round or the match a success. Because if one player says, I have this area covered, and then he dies without calling it out, suddenly that entire flank is open, and no one is to blame except the player who failed. Now, of course, Battlefield is a much larger scale game than Counter-Strike, and CS being a 5v5, close quarters, no respawn defusal mode, whereas Obliteration is more of a chaotic Call of Duty / Battlefield Rush hybrid sort of thing. And I know that competitive Battlefield goes back down to 5v5 and takes to squad rush. But with Battlefield 4, I think we're going to see the return of the 9v9 competitive game modes. But my point being here is that on a small scale, on the competitive scale that DICE is trying to push, they have to be able to execute both individually and as a team. And I don't want to start this commentary saying that, oh, well, I'm comparing Counter-Strike and Battlefield, because they are very different games. For very different reasons. Counter-Strike is built around a single game mode, and its community is much more insular, much smaller, much more dynamic, shall we say. Whereas Battlefield is much more open to the public, sort of. They have to cater to certain play styles, they have to cater to a larger player base. But I think as games become more competitive at their basic level, I've talked about this on my own channel, Counter-Strike is built out of the box for competitive play. You can load up Counter-Strike and instantly you can play competitively. Battlefield, not so much. Players have to figure out what are the best guns, what are the best, most balanced maps, what are the best routes on those maps, and how do they work. What vehicles should we allow? What vehicles should we outlaw? What perks should we use? And some of the mechanics will not be used out of the box, not because they're not effective, but because they're too effective or too little effective. Now, of course, you could make the claim, well, Counter-Strike is like there's only 3 weapons used, and that's true. But out of the box, you know which weapons to use when. Whereas in Battlefield, we sort of have to feel out the maps and things like that. And when Battlefield 4 becomes the competitive juggernaut that DICE hopes it will be, and I personally hope it will be, how will it pan out? What do you guys, and this is where I'm asking you, what do you think will be the final result of DICE's esports push? Will it be the Call of Duty Black Ops sort of league play failure that we saw? Or will it be a real success? And the answer to that question remains to be seen. It all depends on how DICE releases the game, what's there, and how they support it. And of course, DICE's track record for support is somewhat lacking. But I do think that if they get it right the first time, and don't mess it up too much, they will have what they had in Bad Company 2. A game that rewards an individual player's skill and efforts trying to win a game for his team. Now, of course, in Bad Company 2, you had smaller maps, smaller player sizes, and generally faster gameplay. But if he did it well, a single player could get behind enemy lines, act as a spawn point, and arm an objective, and secure a position all at the same time. And I'm beginning to see hints of that mechanic in the Obliteration game mode. A single player dropped in the right position at the right time, or if you're a Half-Life fan, the right man in the wrong place makes all the difference in the world. Valve got that right, because if the bomb is suddenly on the other side of the map, you don't have a helicopter, and your entire team is currently holed up at the farthest point, that bomb site's done, and there's nothing you can do about it. The clincher in a situation like that is, can the team that is, capitalize on the momentum shift? That's one of the things about this Counter-Strike match that really struck me. It was individual skill on a scale of the likes of which I have never seen before. But it was then the team taking what the skill gave them and running with it. If a player didn't pick up the slack like he should have, but someone else did, the momentum, while slowed, kept going, and the team realized it and kept pushing. Kept the enemy team on the back leg instead of the front, making sure that everyone has everything they need to succeed without having to individually assign tasks. Because sometimes individual skill creates an instinctual communication between teams. There is a misconception, I think, that communication is the most important part of any competitive team. And I think communication is one of the most important parts, but there's also the feel that you and your team have. That your teammates know that you can do it, and that they trust you so implicitly to do it that they don't worry. That they're not having a pit in their stomach saying, is he going to be able to do it? Do I have to do something for him? No. You have all demonstrated, you and your teammates have demonstrated to each other time and time again that you are capable of what they think you are capable of. So at the beginning of a match, at least, the pressure is equally spread across the entire team instead of on multiple people at the same time, so that there is never a nervousness, never an unsureness. And this allows you to roll as an individual with the punches. You aren't having to rely on your shot caller, your strat caller, to say, you go here, you go here, you go here. Yes, he can do that at the beginning of the match, but again, it comes down to individual skill. Can you execute when you have to execute? And if you can you do it consistently? Because consistency, both on an individual and on a team level, is one of the hardest things to achieve. To be able to execute everything you want to do, every single time you want to do it, if you can do that, you will be like NIP. You will be like the best team in Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 3 or Bad Company 2. You will do it every time it needs to be done. You'll be able to tell how it worked, why it worked, what would happen if it hadn't have worked, and you'll be able to roll with the punches, especially when the chips are down and everything relies on you. Because individual skill is the marker of a true team player.
Sorry, just before you go, could you please remember to like the video? It's down the bottom somewhere. And also don't forget to subscribe. You can click the central button up here and it will take you through to our webpage. At the top you can click subscribe and share the video with as many people as you can. And thank you for watching a Play the Game video!